Hello, my name is Mick Labrador, and welcome to another episode of Radio the Drum, the podcast where we feature folks that have experienced success in business and in life despite having ADHD or living or working with those of us that do. None of our guests thus far, we'll see maybe today, have gloated about how easy any of this is with an active, busy mind. But every guest has figured out a way through the struggles and learned lessons on how to, and today's guest is no exception. Jenna Redfield is a celebrated social superstar that has built to date some of the biggest social communities of creatives and professionals in the Twin Cities existence. And I'm saying existence. She'll probably expound on that. All while building a reputation as the go-to for leveraging video for growth. She accomplishes all of this daily despite being a fellow neurodivergent, like most of us, with ADHD, and for her, a pinch of autism. If you walk away from today's conversation uninspired, I'm telling you that is on you. Let me introduce today's guest, Jenna Redfield. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. How are you feeling?
Yeah. Good. It's been a long time coming. You've been asking me to be on this podcast for months, and now I'm finally here.
I know. I think it's the ADHD. So what happens is kind of like when that dopamine gets kind of fulfilled, we feel that exuberance. Mm-hmm. I feel that right now, just having you on the show and finally pulling this all together.
Yeah, and we got to see each other for the first time in like 5 years a couple of weeks ago, so that was awesome.
I know.
Super fun.
Isn't it wild how time flies? Mm-hmm. They always say when you're younger, because you're just waiting for the next day until you're 16 and can drive, you're 18 and can, I don't know, go to the casino. I don't know what you do at 18, but, and then 21 and 30 and, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's 5 years gone by. It's wild. So
it feels like the pandemic has shifted all of our timelines and we don't know anything anymore.
Totally. No, without question. We talked about that with we were gathering. It was just like everyone was like, "Man, I haven't seen people in a while," and that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you had just done that coffee and closers, and then that was it. And then you moved, and so I never saw you again. And now I just saw you again for the first time. So it was just like, man, life.
The last time was in a theater hanging out with 400 friends, and then all of a sudden. Zip, and then one day my address says Montana at the end of it. So wow.
I was trying to remember how we met, because I was like, I remember meeting with you at a coffee shop at WeWork, and that was like the first time we ever had a conversation, but I don't remember how we connected before that.
No, I remember that meeting because that was in Uptown.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember we just like clicked, and we just, maybe it's the ADHD, like the neurodivergence. I tend to like click easily with people who are neurodivergent just because we're on like the same wavelength. And I feel like, I don't know, like that's just always something that and that was even before I found out I had ADHD. So I was like just in that wavelength already. And so that was interesting for me to be like, oh, this person like really like, I feel like we have a similar energy. So,
I believe that because I have a lot of friends that are in recovery, do the AA, do 12-step, and they say that they're new, like their past life is behind them, but their new friend group is people in recovery, and they trust them more, and they have this thing. So I totally believe if there is a neurodivergency thing going on, I think it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a humbling thing because, we know, right? If you don't have it, then you don't have to deal with this on a daily basis, that's cool on you. But for the rest of us, it's kind of nice to, connect with someone else.
It's good to have community and people that are similar. I think finding online communities has been very helpful for me because I feel like I'm not crazy and I have people that have similar challenges to me. And so and then I've been doing a lot of YouTube video content around ADHD for the past 4 years. So I've built kind of an audience of ADHDers. So it's been interesting to create your own community from that, which has been really fun.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into all of that stuff, but a question that I always want to ask, just because I've gotten to know you over the years, but our audience, for those of you that haven't heard of Jenna, would you kind of give us your origin story? What were you like as a kid? Let's start there.
Oh, okay. I was a very creative kid. I loved playing dress up. I was very into, like, I wanted to be like an actress. I wanted to be a singer. I was very theatrical, and I just had no fear, I guess, around performance. And so I did a lot of, but I quit a lot of sports too. So I get the dopamine rush of joining a sport and then being like, I don't like this. It's boring. I tried to be a dancer, and I wanted to go home and play with my dolls. Like that was like how my brain works. So like I cycled through so many different sports because I just like couldn't get into them. I wasn't very competitive. And now learning about how I am. And I had to do a lot of childhood memory work when I was getting officially diagnosed with stuff to figure out, okay, well, what were those signs as a child? I was very fearful around strangers and people, and transitions. So like when my mom would drop me off at preschool, I would like hug onto her leg and not let her go. And it was that transition time. So I don't know if you want me to talk about my like autism ADHD journey too, because it kind of goes alongside that. I don't know if you want it.
Absolutely. And a big question I had for you is, to jump into that, because you grew up on a lake, right?
My parents moved to a lake when I was 15, so sort of.
Okay.
But yes.
I only bring that up because autistic kids tend to gravitate towards water, and I have a son who has epilepsy and some things, and they were still on the fence on whether or not he is on the spectrum. My daughter definitely has ADHD, and I know that when we go back to Minnesota, my parents, my brother, my in-laws, like everyone lives on a lake, and he'll just sit there and just sit there. Like he'll just sit there and like he'll get up in the morning and just sit, because all of them have like, the big open windows or whatever, and he'll look. So I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, but, no, I love water and like I love lakes, and I lived in LA for a bit during college, and it was, even though it was like near the ocean, it was a 45-minute drive to the ocean. So I missed the Minnesota lake so much. I was only there for 5 months. And like I have worked at summer camp, so I lived on a lake. Like I've always like been very close to lakes. And so for me, it was just so weird to be far from the lake. But yes, it's interesting because so I realized I was probably ADHD during the pandemic. So that was a very interesting time to learn.
So recently.
2020, yeah. So it was like the summer 2020. I was on TikTok, which I don't know if you know, but TikTok is like a dopamine heaven because it's constantly changing. And I was really into TikTok at the time. And then I started getting ADHD content, which I was like, oh, like, why am I getting this? And then I started watching the videos and I was like, wait, why is every single thing that they say very much me? Right. So that was kind of the start of my journey. And then last summer, I was like, I started same exact thing on Instagram. I started seeing a lot of autism content around autism in women. And again, that aha moment. And so this past spring, I went and got my official ADHD autism diagnosis combined, which is it's different than just being ADHD, and it's different than just being autistic. So ADHD is a specific type of autism ADHD. So it actually looks different than autism, and it looks different than ADHD. And until 2013, they didn't think that it existed. So like it only was officially able to be diagnosed in 2013. Isn't that crazy? So that's like less than 15 years ago.
That is wild.
So it's all, a lot of this has been because of social media. Like there has been a lot more awareness, and just all the kids that were seen as like kind of weird. Like, for me, like as a woman, you're not really like thought of as autistic, but I think about all the things in my life that I'm like, they just never added up. And I just couldn't figure out why I felt so different and felt like an alien on this planet is kind of how I felt. But I wanted to share this stat. It says, according to research, up to 80% of children with an autism diagnosis also meet the criteria for ADHD, and up to 50% of children with an ADHD diagnosis also meet the criteria for autism. So literally there's so much overlap between the two that I think in the next 10 years, I think what will happen is I think they're almost going to be a very similar diagnosis. Like, I feel like I think the autism spectrum is so much bigger than we think. And so I think that's the thing too, and it presents in so many different ways. And so for me, like, there's still days where I'm like, I don't feel autistic enough, but then there's days where I'm like, I'm definitely not neurotypical. So it's like, there's like this weird like push and pull. And then there's some days where I feel more ADHD and some days I feel more autistic. So it's like, it just really depends on the day. So you never know with me, because it's constantly a struggle,
So walk us through, because there might be somebody listening and going, yeah, man, I've never heard that before. I'd never heard that before until we did our prep yesterday.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that. So I think I told you, with, and I don't know if this is common with men or not, but Sting the musician, there's people that when I was diagnosed at 25, 44 now, they slapped me a label of bipolar 2 as well. And I think I told you, only knowing from the movies what that meant, not knowing what the two meant. With my son having TS2 versus TS1, there's these variants of whatever, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be schizophrenic, I'm gonna go crazy, and so I can tell you what it's like to have that in my life. But why don't you walk through to say what is it? You said it feels this or it feels that. What does it feel like for someone listening that might struggle with this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just not this is what I always describe it as, is I feel like I was born without a life manual. Like, I feel like everything in my life comes where I don't know what's happening, and then I spend a ton of time researching to understand it. And so that's why, like, when people look at me and they're like, man, you do a lot of research. Like, you really look into things, and you, like, I become an expert on anything that I don't know anything about, because I want to almost like level myself up to my peers, but then get better. So it's like that what happens is I'll start down here and everyone else is here. And then I'm just like, I want to figure it out to a point where I'm so good at it. It's called masking is what they call it in like the neurodivergent language. It's like you're trying to like appear like everyone else, but you're not. And you're trying so hard to fit in. And I really struggled socially growing up in like middle school, high school, college. And so I always felt like I was just like, there was something missing in terms of like the social skills and stuff. And I just was so confused. And it wasn't until my 20s that I really started like working on my social skills that I felt like I was able to make friends and keep connections.
Yeah.
But then with the ADHD side, it was interesting. Sorry, this again going on a tangent. That was more of in my 20s actually, because I started my own business. And that's where I think the ADHD traits really, really came out, was struggle with focus, struggle with changing my mind all the time, struggle with memory issues, struggle with, or just like, I think even just my personality is just kind of like, not crazy, but like all over the place. So I think there's definitely parts of my personality that I realize are not my personality. They're just the definition of ADHD. So it's kind of interesting to learn that all the things you thought were unique about you are actually just a diagnosis criteria. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Did you go to college?
I did. Mm-hmm.
How was that?
I ended up choosing a college that wasn't as difficult because I went to a very difficult high school. I was always a pretty good student. I was a procrastinator though, for sure. Yeah. That was probably my biggest struggle in both high school and college. But I'm also kind of a people pleaser. And I'm really like, I think I'm pretty smart in a sense that I could kind of BS my way through college and actually do well because I was very motivated by learning. Yeah. So that was one of my biggest motivators. And I think that's kind of more the autistic side is like, I really like learning. And I went to a college where I was like, people like were just there to get a degree and move on. And people thought it was weird that I really cared about what I was learning about. And so it just, and I didn't understand that. I'm like, aren't we here to learn? Like, why is this so weird to everyone? I didn't understand. And I was really passionate about my major, which was media production. And so I really wanted to learn and become as good as I possibly could in my craft. So I also went into a major that didn't have as many tests and didn't have as much, like essay writing was a little tough just because that's a lot of sitting and focusing. But I liked being creative and making video projects. That was not a chore to me. So for me in college, that was like kind of fun.
Did you have to take what's the name of them? The classes no one wants to take, but they have to. You got a 4-year, right?
Well, I went to a 4, yeah. So I was not good at math or science, but I had to take at least one of those. And then I thankfully had taken 4 or 5 years of Spanish in high school. So I tested out of Spanish. I didn't have to keep doing Spanish.
Nice.
And then, so I basically did the bare minimum math and science, and then every other class was ones I wanted to take. Because, again, one of the things that's different about ADHD brains is we're interest-based nervous systems, which is like we only are motivated by things we're interested in. And so that was, for me, the nice thing about college is you're trying to go after something that you want. It's something that you are interested in. And unfortunately, those boring classes, I struggled in them because I didn't really want to be there. And so, but I also was kind of a people pleaser and I wanted to do well in my grades. So I worked as hard as I could to actually, do well. So
that's amazing. So your first business was 20. So like, is that right out of, wait? Yeah.
I was 23 when I started my first business, which was in 2014. So I started off as a wedding videographer. So I had worked at a summer camp where I was a camp photographer, videographer. And one of my, fellow campmate, staff people was like, hey, could you film my wedding? I was in my senior year of college and I went, okay. So I filmed her wedding. She paid me $250 because I didn't know how to charge for a wedding and I didn't know what I was doing. And then somebody else found out I did a wedding. So they asked me, so it just kind of went from there. And then at that time I was also job searching. So I went, wait, so I just started a side business doing weddings for like a year and a half. And that was my first initial foray into entrepreneurship.
That's wild. Now, did you notice, Did you end up getting a real job, like going and sitting in a
Sort
desk?
of, yes, sort of. I never worked in corporate America, but I worked for a small business, a moving company. I worked as their marketing director for like a year. Then I went on my own again because I didn't like that job. Then I ended up working for a co-working space for about a year, and I was the head of the co-working space in Golden Valley. And that was around the time I was starting Twin Cities Collective, and I've always had a business my entire 20s. Since I graduated, I've always had a business on the side. So I've had at least 3 or 4 businesses by this point, which again, ADHD.
No, totally. I was kind of leading. I didn't mean to ask you a loaded question, but I've done some hiring and I've been in sales for all of my career. I mean, I consider entrepreneurship sales as well, but is when you look at, you go to a LinkedIn thing or you look at a resume and you see the 2-year gap. I was an 18 month guy, 18, 2.5 years, depending on if I could flip the territory. To me, where I would stay interested, and I love the fact that you put this as kind of an interest-based scenario where you look and you see 2-year gaps, 1-year gaps, 2-year gaps, and you go, this person is neurodivergent, which isn't the worst thing. A lot of times you're going to get someone's best, especially in a competitive environment like sales, where you're interested for 18 months. That's the best that person's going to be, because 19 months, 20 months later, they might start to be like, all right, this isn't challenging anymore. Did you feel that?
It was more of like interest-based was so much of what I did that if I got bored, I quit the job, kind of a thing. Like I was more of like, if I tried hard to keep the 2 jobs that I had, but both of them I quit because I was just fed up. Like I was just like, this is not what I want. And I think the only thing I realized is the only job I'd ever want is one I'd create for myself. So I feel like for me, I was like, I need to make money, but I also don't want to live my life in a way that I'm miserable, which by the end of both of those jobs, I was somewhat miserable. And so it's like at points I liked the job, but then there was a lot of times I didn't. And so for me, I think I just learned a lot about myself, and I learned that I could make money for myself. And so I'm just like, I'm just going to take the leap and take the risk. And maybe that's another ADHD thing, is just kind of like jumping at things and taking opportunities when they come and just being like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to follow it. So the last like real job I had was in 2018. Yeah. Because then I did work for someone for 6 months, but it was kind of like as like doing marketing and stuff. But yeah, I've been like freelance for 7 years, which is crazy.
And do you feel that well, can we call it a superpower? Do you consider this a superpower?
I think ADHD, I just saw like a TikTok about this. I think it is a unique way of looking at the world, for sure. And I think it is needed. I don't know if you've like looked into the background of, a lot of people think that ADHD comes from the hunter-gatherer time period, where there's the people that had to stay up and look for danger. And like that's kind of like the genetics of it, where there's the people that were, there's different roles in ancient societies, and they feel like ADHD were the ones that had to wake up and like be alert and find the danger. So I think that has been, genetically passed down in a sense. And I think for us, I think society wouldn't function without people on the neurodivergent spectrum. Truly. Like, because that's the innovators. These are the people that are taking risks. They're the ones that are eventually become leaders. A lot of the people in the business world have ADHD. You can look at all the famous people, and I think a lot of them have undiagnosed ADHD, or they're on the neurodivergent spectrum and they don't want to admit it, or they haven't looked into it. So I really think the word superpower, it's like, it is debilitating and it is technically a disability, but I do think that I don't regret having it, if that makes sense.
Where does it cause you the most struggles?
I think it's procrastination, overwhelm is one for me. I get I'm either constantly underwhelmed or constantly overwhelmed. So for me, it's like finding that balance. It's either I'm really bored or I'm overwhelmed to the point where I get stuck and I cannot move. So it's kind of like my body's constantly trying to balance itself. And again, I think that's the autism too, for me specifically, is like that balance, push and pull between the ADHD autism. Because if you think about it, ADHD and autism are kind of opposite.
Yeah.
Like autism loves routine, ADHD hates routine. So it's like, for me, it's like I'm constantly balancing the two. And so I think the biggest struggle that I have is, there's so many of them. I think the interest space, honestly, is also a struggle, because I cannot exist in a world where I'm not having fun.
Okay.
Like if I'm not enjoying myself, I feel like I want to kill myself. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's the worst thing in the world if I'm not enjoying my life. And so some people are able to just coast and just like, even if they are miserable, they're still able to work. For me, it's like, if I hate something, I do not want to do it and I avoid it to an extreme extent. So
that is fascinating. And so if you're listening to this, because we have, listeners of all ages. I mean, I had, my uncles who's 62 started listening to the podcast and found out that he actually has ADHD. He started to dig into it. And then we've got an individual that I won't name, but he's, he's in his teens that I know listens to this. And it's good for someone to hear that just because calculus is not or that you're not, maybe you could be good at calculus if calculus was interesting to you. And that is a struggle that I think most of us will face. And I know I face it, is I love starting companies in between my consulting gigs. Cause I got a family and I got kids and I got a mortgage and stuff. And so like this sales thing I've been doing since I was 14, it comes, naturally, but also what people realize is it's a verbal sport. Meaning, I'm not saying bamboozling or whatever, but like you have metrics. Like that's the only thing that salespeople are comped on. Are my wife designs buildings. She's an architect. We can walk through her buildings. You can't walk through my quota. You either hit it or you don't. There's nothing really there, and so it keeps that dopamine up. But then also launching like the most recent one, our sauna business, because when I am bored, I call it idle hands. Bad hobbies, bad habits, terrible. So I completely, hear that with you, but it's nice for someone to listen and go, oh man, I don't like these classes, but I love these classes. You had a thought that I interrupted there, and I don't know if it had to do with that.
No, I think what you're saying is so true. I think one of the things I've learned about myself is I have to understand my own self and the way that my brain works. And one of the things I decided when I was very young, I was about 18 when I decided not to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
I made that decision. I was like, I just know myself enough to know that my body would not do well with alcohol. I think I would become an addict. And so I just chose at 18 to not drink alcohol. And I have maintained that. So I don't drink alcohol. I also don't drink coffee because I was like, same thing. I'm going to get addicted to it. And so for me, I almost do better with like really, really, really strong rules for myself that I do not break. And again, I think that's more on the autistic side where I have almost like strong moral ethics that I create for myself. And like, I almost have like a wall. But I think for a lot of people, and I've talked to so many ADHDers, and it just seems like there is a lot of recurring things that happen. And for me being an entrepreneur, you're right. Like I love the idea of a launch. I love creating businesses. That gives me so much dopamine. And so that's why I've had so many, because it's just like, oh my gosh, a new thing or a new podcast or a new, I want to write a book. That's my next thing. I want to write a book. So it's like, I want to do that. The thing about writing a book is it takes a really long time and it's a lot of patience. And I'm like, oh, when am I going to find the time for this? So I think for people that are struggling, one of the things, and I kind of talked about this a little yesterday, one of the things I've learned is a lot of it has to do with our bodies as well. So the food we're eating, the things that we're doing. A lot of times, if you have ADHD, your body struggles to detox. So so that's why saunas are really great for ADHD because it helps with the detox process. I don't know
when
if
you say
know that.
detox, what do you mean?
So our bodies take in food and take in things from the environment, and our body is supposed to process and then excrete them, in different ways, sweat, urine, that sort of thing. They have found that people who are neurodivergent, our bodies are not built to detox as well. So we tend to hold toxins in, and that actually affects our mental and our physical bodies. So a lot of people, I've done a ton of research on this, have gene mutations that make it harder for our body to process just toxins. And so I have been on a journey the last year to stop taking in as much toxins, things like plastic, things like, things that I've been eating. I went gluten-free, just things that make our body slower to detox. I started doing things like lymphatic drainage, and I bought a vibration plate. So I kind of like help stimulate the lymphatic system. So for me, I have found that doing these have improved my memory and my ADHD so much because I'm not slowing it down with toxins. And I think saunas are a huge one. So I think you're on the right path as an ADHDer. You could probably see yourself getting better because your body is detoxing better. So just a thought.
No, for sure. Well, I mean, I'll bring up the sauna thing, and then I want to go back to the shaky table you said and things that I'm like, I'm trying to like think like, I want you to explain those things to people because I didn't know what they were either. But for those listening, and I know you can relate, is the sauna has been a game changer for us. You know what it is? It's you start inviting people over. We got a big barrel sauna, a Blackbird from that's 10 people. I say it's a 12-footer, but no one wants to sit on the other side of the stove unless they don't have legs. But is the thing for me with the sauna is, there's a lot of these health benefits, but it's the sleep. And I don't know if you want to speak on that or not, but sleep for me has been a challenge. The older I get, when I was younger, maybe not so much. In college, I just put myself to sleep because I was a drinker. And those things. But when you get older and you don't indulge as much, then I think that's where the food, the stuff you're just talking about comes because of sleep. But when I started to do the sauna, the nights that I do, I can't say do it every night, but the nights that I do, there is no question it's the best sleep of my life. But I never thought about it because of the detox. I thought it was just about,
It's both, I think. I've done so much. I actually just did a video about it. So if people want to watch it on my YouTube channel, I just did a video about it. But basically I did a genetic test, and it turns out I have 30% of the population has a gene mutation called the MTHFR. I don't know if you've heard of this. So basically it's your body is basically impaired. It's kind of like your body's a computer and you have bugs in it that make it harder for your body to detox. And so a lot of people shouldn't be eating something called folic acid, which is in a lot of breads, a lot of, fortified foods, and because it causes blockages in your body to be able to detox. So that's one of the reasons I went gluten-free, and that's one of the reasons why I think my ADHD symptoms have gotten better, is because my body isn't full of so much toxins, and so my body's able to get rid of toxins better, and then that makes my body function better. So it's something to look into. I don't want to get down the rabbit hole. I have a whole guide on it. I've done so much work because I found out I have this condition. And so I'm trying to educate others on it as well. So that's been a very, very personal project I've been working on for the last year. And I just made a video about it last week. So
what, just because we're going to do this at the end anyway, but since we're 27 minutes in, where is this resource? Because I want to check out after this.
So it's on my Substack. So if you go to jennaredfield.substack.com, it's the second one down. I don't know if it's just called, I think it's the biggest hack about ADHD that you didn't know. Yeah, that's the name of the video. And it's on so if you click on that, it will have the YouTube video embedded, and it also has the link to the guide. And there's a way that you can, if you have done an ancestry DNA test, you can actually download your raw DNA and upload it to this website called Genetic Genie, and you can see instantly if you have this condition. So I always recommend people to do an ancestry DNA test, which you can get for under $100, and it takes about 6 weeks to do. Once you get your DNA, not just where you're from, which is what most people do it for, you can actually find out about health conditions from it. So that's really interesting, and a lot of people may not know. So I had actually both my parents do it, and they both had the same genetic mutation I have. So that's how genetic this is both of them had it. So that was surprising to me because I thought it would just be one parent. It was both. Interesting.
My brother has ADHD, and my dad actually has come to me to say maybe I do too. So I believe in the genetics part of it because it didn't happen out of nowhere, and one of my kids hasn't, one of them doesn't. So back to the food thing, because no, I want to go end with the food thing, but you said the lymphatic thing.
Lymphatic system, yep.
Can you tell us about that? Because I'm the only one that doesn't know what that is.
The lymphatic system is how our body drains toxins from it. So I just got my first ever lymphatic drainage massage, which is basically, I read this whole book about the lymphatic system, so I know a lot about it. Basically, you all you have to do is just you rub your hands down parts of your body, and you're trying to head it towards kind of your stomach. So if you've ever heard of dry brushing, where you brush your skin, basically what it's doing is your skin and your body takes in all the toxins, and you're supposed to drain it out. But we as a society have kind of gotten away from that, and they used to do it in ancient civilizations. That's why people like massages so much, is because it kind of helps get break up some of the toxins. But one of the things I bought was something called a vibration plate, where you stand on it and it vibrates and it helps kind of shake up your lymphatic system. So it's basically helping your body drain itself of all the toxins, which it does naturally. But for people that are most likely neurodivergent, it's harder for us to drain our bodies of toxins. And so having toxins in our bodies can affect our like mental stuff. So it's, I mean, there's lots of research on this. I'm not a health expert, but I have found it personally, going gluten-free and ridding myself of folic acid, which is a synthetic thing that gets added to American diets. They started this in the late 90s. That's why so many people, when they go to Italy and they eat bread, it's like they don't feel gross. It's because all the food in America is fortified with folic acid, which 30% of the population cannot absorb. So that's why like I get like kind of on my tangent about it, because I'm like, I really believe that a lot of people, if they're ADHD, if they go gluten-free, check back in a year and see if it's changed for you, because I've now been almost a year gluten-free and I feel like a different person.
Really? Mm-hmm. So what other foods should we be avoiding? And this could be for us neurodivergent people or maybe everyone.
It's in my guide. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But obviously things like, sugar is one, but like everyone knows that, there's certain things that alcohol is one actually. So alcohol is one of the biggest, things that our body struggles to detox from. I mean, we know that, the liver and all those things. But let me see if I can find my guide. Give me a second. I think for me, it's, and I have a lot of other issues too, but for me, things that are also important to get rid of are plastics. So I switched from I got a glass air fryer instead of one that was like the traditional air fryer. So I switched to glass instead of plastic containers. They're doing so much research on how plastics are affecting us, heavy metals, even synthetic fabrics, nonstick cookware, fragrances can affect you, pesticides, toxins, mold. Again, this goes down like the health rabbit hole, but I really think that mental health and health are very connected. And I don't think there's enough talk about that, because people are either focused on their health or their mental health. And I'm like, I think they're kind of the same thing, because our bodies affect so much. Like they talk about how ADHD starts in the gut, right?
Yeah.
It starts in it's the gut brain connection. It's like, okay, so if ADHD is a brain thing, why are we not focused on our gut, which is our food, probiotics, that sort of thing? I feel like there's so much connection between the two. And I, for so many years, was just working on productivity tips and forcing myself to be productive, when I'm like, wait, maybe there's a hidden root cause to this. And so that's where I've really gone down the last 2 years, is kind of a health rabbit hole of, wait, maybe a lot of my symptoms are actually because my body's impaired, and I need to make sure that I'm not adding more impairment by the stuff that I'm consuming and putting on my body.
This is fascinating. And I know you keep saying, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
This is the whole point of this show, because we learned about how to, how the, a federal, jail sentence works. We've learned what it's like to compete at a world level in jiu-jitsu. Now we're learning a little bit more about applicable things that we can all apply. I mean, I'm not saying I do jiu-jitsu, but I'm not going into the world championship ring anytime soon. But I can. This is interesting. I have so many questions, if you don't mind.
I know. Yeah, that's fine. I could totally go down a rabbit hole on this, because I've spent some time. So this kind of goes back. So I was on hormonal birth control for over a decade. I went off of it, and then my body exploded with acne and really bad skin sensitivities. This was about 2 years ago. So that was what sent me down the health rabbit hole of, okay, how can I fix this? I know it's something with my hormones. I know it's something. I did hormone testing. I did genetic testing. I did blood testing. We learned a lot of things. I started working with a naturopathic doctor. I've gone on a ton of different supplements to kind of fix my levels, and it's slowly gotten better. So all of this stemmed from my skin and not from my ADHD and my autism. But then I learned, I was like, wait, so when I started making changes for my skin was when I actually found out it was helping my ADHD. So it was almost a side effect of I thought that the going gluten-free was going to help my skin, and it actually helped more my brain than I realized. So a lot of it had to do with I was fixing one thing, but also fix something else. And so that's when I started making those connections in my head of oh, wait, I think there's really a link here between all the issues I have, from my skin to my, all the stuff all has to do with the food and the toxins and my genetics.
Wow. So foods that we should be avoiding and foods that we should, well, and flip to that is, what are foods that you found are helpful?
So I literally have a list. I don't know if you want me to share my list on the screen, but I can. So things like vegetables, asparagus, beets is a really important one because so the process that our body goes through that the MTHFR gene affects is called methylation. And so beets are a really, really important one to eat. Obviously, like meat, fish, eggs, beef, leafy greens, Brussels sprouts. So basically all the stuff you should be eating. Avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil. Yeah. And it just depends. Like things like fermented foods, it depends on if you have high histamine levels. So my body can be somewhat sensitive to certain foods. So then I have to be careful about eating too much like sauerkraut or things that are, they seem like good for your gut, but sometimes your body can overreact. I've gone down the rabbit holes. There's so much to this research, but I really think that your diet is a really important part of your mental health. And I think eating snack foods all day and then you feel terrible both physically and mentally, like there's probably a link there,
Totally. Now, can I just ask a question? We live in a culture, you just described it in our foods, we want a quick fix, TikTok, you brought that up. Have you taken medications before? Have you
No,
not?
I really have gone the supplement route. That has been my main thing. And then also elimination. So eliminating the gluten-free. So those, because I have very strong beliefs about medication that I'm just like, they're personal to me, that I don't really want to get addicted to a medication in a sense where it's like I feel reliant on it. So a lot of the stuff I've been trying to do for myself has been either behavioral or lifestyle changes. So things like doing saunas. Like I got really into saunas in 2020. So I have become a sauna. I mean, I think that was something we like bonded over a little bit, was like we both love saunas. I also learned, this is a fun fact that I think women need to know. Our bodies actually don't do well in ice baths. Women.
Really?
Yes. So men can tolerate it fine. Women actually can tolerate higher heat, and men can't. But men can tolerate cold and women can't, because our body goes into fight or flight, and it can actually cause more anxiety because of the way that our like hormones and everything are. So I learned this on a podcast a couple months ago. And so I've just like, I need to tell women this. So it's like, just because men can do it doesn't mean women can. So I'm just saying. It's an interesting
I did not know that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Now, is there any side effect? Like, you said anxiety.
I'll send you the link to it. It was on a podcast, but basically it's more of like our nervous system. It affects our nervous system in terms of like, it can cause more anxiety. And our body just like goes like into like fight or flight, and we just can't that's why a lot of women don't like ice baths, because like their body's like telling them stop. Like it's really like not good for women. And I think men can like tolerate it better. I don't see it in men. Like it's almost relaxing to them. And I think for women, there's a lot more issues with the ice baths. But we can also be in the heat a lot longer, which is interesting. So it's like we can be in the sauna for both longer and higher temps than men. So that's very interesting.
We ran a bunch of, this is interesting to hear. Well, there's two things that are interesting to me and hopefully for our listeners is I can hear your ADHD and your autism kind of pairing up at certain points, meaning like the rabbit holes that you've gone down through research. I can see that there's an interest in it, but I can also see the recapture of the information and then the organization of it to put together lists and so on, which we will share with all of you listeners. It's Jenna with 2 N's, and it's red like the color, and Field like North Dakota.
Another fun fact. Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say,
you.
no, we'll have all this stuff because I mean, I don't want to be selfish. I could go down this rabbit hole all day long.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, one of my favorite things that it's a whole rabbit hole. I went and got a color analysis last year, if you know what that is. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
So basically they lay a bunch of colors in front of you, and they tell you which colors look good on you or not and what season you are. So I am a spring. And one of the best colors in spring is red. And so I wear a lot of red, and also my last name is Redfield. So my new signature color is now red. And so you'll see it in all of my stuff now that you look. You'll see my LinkedIn photo is me wearing red. So I really tried to work on that. And that is another rabbit hole I went down, was my color analysis. So I've done a few YouTube videos on it. But again, like that's the thing about my autistic side, is I get so into things that I do so much research, and then I I think you might know this. I teach Notion on YouTube, which is a software. So I put everything into Notion and then I make like full guides for people. So my MTHFR guide is like so in depth because I've literally just been collecting information for the past year and just put it in a guide that people can use. It's $3. And I'm just like, guys, like I just like have been gathering stuff for myself. I just want to share it because people that are, once they find out they have the gene, they're like, now what? That was me 2 years ago. Now what? If I had this guide, it would have been so much more helpful to, instead of spending, 20 hours a week, like researching, which is what I did for the first couple of months. Like I literally I was a fiend for information. I just wanted as much information as possible. And then now I'm sharing it with the world on my YouTube channel and my podcast. So that's kind of what I've kind of really switched to kind of health in the last year, just in terms of the topics, because I'm like, this is so much of my life is what I'm spending time learning about.
Well, and you said that and everyone has their own opinion on ADHD as a superpower or whatnot. But what I'll tell you is, when we give back to the world and we leave it, what's left. And this guide, not saying that, you're young, but saying, so is it a superpower? Maybe not, but like your mind attracts towards this delving into information that you're interested and curious about, but then also the ability to capture it and put it in an organized autistic, if you will, package where the rest of us can learn from. I think that there's something heroic about that. We don't have to call it a superpower, but something heroic about taking the time to do that. And most of us would just go,
I think for me, it's just what I would do naturally. And it's not an additional effort. It's more of like, I'm doing this for myself and I'd rather just share it than hoard it to myself. So I'm the kind of person who is always, and that's why I like Notion so much, is because you can build rabbit holes for yourself. You can create different boards and you can put as much information as you can. And so for me, people get very overwhelmed by my Notion because there's so much in it. And I'm like, that's the autistic side, is like, I don't get overwhelmed with information very easily. I can take in, actually, I think that I saw a stat once that autistic brains can take in a lot more information than a neurotypical brain. So for me, I tend to overwhelm other people because I have so much in my head. And they're like, oh, I can't take this in. For me, it's the opposite. I cannot take enough in. It's like, I'm like constantly like, feed me. I'm like Cookie Monster. I'm just like, give me more cookies of information, to a point where I have become an expert in a field that I'm not even, a doctor or anything, but I have just been so interested in it because it affects me personally.
That's amazing. Speaking of, we were talking about foods, and I wanted to get into Notion and what you're doing, because I think that could be inspiring to somebody who a platform like that attracts to. And I want you to start at the beginning to explain what Notion is, because if my dad and uncle and brother are listening, or whoever, some high school teachers, they're not going to know what it is. We use it at Reaver, but anyway, I digress. We're going to start here because we're going to get back into the career path that you've chosen. You've talked about discipline for your health and body, but are you disciplined? Like, have you found like schedule, like waking up at a certain time, doing this at a certain time? Have you found that effective?
So yes and no. Okay, I challenge myself in some senses. So I did a challenge the past year to walk 10,000 steps a day, and I did that for a year. And then the moment I'm like, I'm done, it completely went away. So one of the things I've learned about ADHD is that we cannot build habits. It's an identity shift. So for me, it's more of like I saw this TikTok once. Sometimes TikToks will stick with me because I'm like, that is brand new information. One of the TikToks I saw once was people with ADHD tend to talk anecdotally versus question-based. So we answer a question with a story instead of asking a question back. And so we go from story to story. So people that have ADHD talk in stories, and the people that are neurotypical ask questions back, and they don't answer with a story. So we try to relate to people with stories. Does that make sense?
Yes. Too much sense, actually.
So,
it's ringing a bell here, that's for sure.
So that was something that really stuck with me. And so it's made me make a clear effort to ask questions, because I realized that does not come naturally to me. So, okay, now I'm going back. So there was a TikTok about, habits. So one of the things I learned about habits is, there's the idea of habit stacking. They talk about that in Atomic Habits. That can sort of work because you're kind of triggered. But I think for me, every day, one of the things that is very helpful is reminders. I don't know if you do this. So for me, every week, my Amazon Alexa tells me at 6:30 it's time to take out the trash. Because if I didn't, I would forget to take out the trash. Yeah. So for me, having those verbal reminders helps. That's like one hack that I've done. But also for a lot of stuff, it's more of, I just need to get this done at some point today. So whether it's standing on my vibration plate or taking a shower or eating, like as long as I finish it by, like I don't have a set schedule every single day where it's the same because I would get so bored. But I also do like the consistency, the autism side of like, I like to have things, like I will eat the same foods every day. That's an autistic thing, not an ADHD thing. I have the same exact breakfast for the last 3 years straight, the exact same breakfast. So it's like for me, and that's because I know all the ingredients. So I know when I'm running low. So that's the ADHD side is like, I know it's time to buy this one ingredient. Otherwise, if I'll forget things are in my fridge and then they go bad. I don't know if that happens to you. It's like, oh, I forgot that was in there. And then I waste so much money on fresh food that I forget about. So for me, I think it's like finding those little hacks and things for yourself. And that's kind of what I share on my YouTube channel too, is how can I improve my ADHD in a sense where I know I have it. I know my brain works this way. How can I just make my life a little easier and not have to pay that ADHD tax, which we all have, which is the forgetfulness. Oh, my library books are overdue. Oh, I forgot to get gas. Oh no, like all of these little things that add up. I forgot to pay my parking. Like this is something that happened to me. I don't like to open my mail. It's like an avoidant thing. And then I found out that my HOA prices had gone up and I didn't realize it. So I was 3 months late on the changes to my HOA. So I had to send them a huge check to be like, I forgot to like check my mail, So it's like those little things like add up over time. And so when you were talking about making changes that are consistent and habits, it's a struggle. But having the little hacks help me.
That's interesting. I did not know that about habits you said. Is ADHD people have...
They really, if you think about it, it's very hard to build a habit with ADHD. It really is, because the moment that you forget one time, it doesn't come back. Because they talk about, it takes 21 days to build a habit. I think it's more of I am pressuring myself to live up to the standards that I've set. That's more of what pushes me. So if I say I'm somebody that walks 10,000 steps a day, like that is what motivates me to walk 10,000 steps a day. But the moment I said, I'm just going to walk 7,500 steps a day, completely went away. Like those habit that I built was gone. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's like, if you have, it's all about mindset. I'm a big mindset person. Like if you have the mindset for it, it will follow through because it's your self, talk, I guess, in a sense.
That's awesome. Well, tell us about the mindset of a Notion user. Tell us about what you're doing and applying your gifts to. And it started at an elementary level for those that don't even know what Notion is. Yeah,
well, Notion. So I had tried so many different tools to try to organize myself. Trello, Asana, ClickUp, Airtable. They're all softwares that are, made to help with to-do lists and all that stuff. And it wasn't until I found Notion that I was like, this is made for my brain. Truly. I was like, it is so customizable. You can create lists, but you can also see it in calendar view. You can see it in gallery view. Basically, it's a way to organize your life, your digital life. So I use it for I can look through my now, but basically I can use it to track my goals, my to-do list, my shopping list. I use it for grocery lists. I use it for tracking my content calendar, my CRM, business projects, the movies I watch, the TV shows I watch, the podcasts I listen to. I track everything. I'm like very weird about that. But for most people that aren't as like crazy as me, it's mostly for just organizing the projects you're working on. So whether it's a to-do list or you can create a directory with it. It's just super customizable. So my whole YouTube channel has a ton about Notion. So if you're like, what is this? That's like what my channel is. I'm actually Minnesota's first Notion ambassador. So nice. There's actually, there's over 100 million users worldwide. So it's a pretty big company. And they're based out of San Francisco. And they started about 9 years ago. And they've really grown during the pandemic. A lot of students use it to help with their homework, writing. They have a lot of AI tools now. So there's a lot of really cool stuff around Notion. So I've just became like a Notion geek. I just got really into it because it was a way for me to use it to basically create a second brain for all the stuff that's in my head.
And you're creating micro videos for people too. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So if you're in the Twin Cities area, which I know some of your people are, obviously if you want to fly me out and pay me to make videos for you, I help small businesses.
Montana would craft some amazing
yeah.
videos.
Oh, that would be great. Great background. Great backdrop. So my background is in video production. I went to school. I went to film school. I have a degree in media production. And so over the years, I've done a lot of videos for myself and for clients. I kind of got away from it a bit when I was doing Twin Cities Collective, which was the local community I built here for about 8 years. But this past year, I realized I'm like, wait, video is my biggest strength. Like I've been doing it for so long and so many businesses don't know how to make videos. And instead of me teaching them and them never figuring it out, I'm just going to do it for them. I'm going to film them. I'm going to edit. And so I created a package last fall called a VIP day where I work with someone for 8 hours and we create 30 videos in that time. And I'm not talking about filming. I'm talking about editing as well. So you get the videos by the end of the day. So I film for 3 hours and then I edit for 4. And you get 30 interview style videos that can be shared across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. And you can, most people keep them for about 3 months. If you post twice a week, that's a quarter's worth of content. So that is my main offer now. And I'm trying to expand that to maybe retainers, and working with companies, and getting like 20 videos a month. So that's my next phase is kind of doing like month to month and maybe also going back and doing a little bit of management as well with social. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have opportunity to make sure that people reach out because it sounds like an awesome offering. Now, does Notion integrate? I mean, I'm sure is Notion the platform for that you share?
Yes and no. So Notion is a great planning tool. It does not schedule content, so I use other softwares for that. Notion obviously has its limits, but what I love about Notion is it's constantly being updated. So they just launched Forms last year. They now have a Notion calendar, and they just launched Notion Mail. So they have other apps beyond Notion, and they all kind of work together. And so it's kind of building its own ecosystem in a sense, kind of like a Microsoft or a Google. And so I'm just a big fan, and it's free, which is so cool. A lot of people don't know that it's a free software. Obviously there's different levels if you need more like people on a team. A lot of teams use it in business because it's a way for them to plan content, organize, SOPs. Like there's literally so many uses for it that it's just kind of a build your own adventure.
That's wonderful. So you're creating video. What is the advantage of working with someone like you that has the spectrum flavor and the ADHD? Is there an advantage?
Yes, I think so. Well, first of all, I'm very creative. Like I can come up with things I've also been a podcaster for 8 years, so I'm really good at like interviewing. And so that's part of the process is I interview as a person. So instead of just getting a straight up videographer, you're getting a strategist. You're getting a marketing strategist who's worked with over, I don't even know how many businesses at this point, 100 businesses. So like I have worked with so many businesses over the years as a marketing strategist that now I'm putting that and actually making content. I'm also someone who is a content creator myself. I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. I have a TikTok, all these things. I know content really well. And so what I found is that people, that is the medium right now is short form videos. Like people sit and scroll on Instagram reels for hours. That's what you need to be making as a business in order to be seen. And so for me, as someone who's ADHD, like I'm just extremely creative but for me, the day that I work with those people, I have to be very focused. I have to be like, I feel myself turning on because it's like, I have to focus because I need to be able to edit and hyper focus, Well,
when you said edit, I was like, okay, there's the autism because I know that's one thing. And this is why I use the tools I use is because even shorts now, I just use this AI tool because I just don't have the attention span. You know what I mean? To sit and edit.
Yeah. I think that was something I realized when I was in high school. And that's why I went into film it was the one thing I could focus with was editing because you get so locked in and you're just so focused that you put your headphones on. Like I could be editing for an hour and look up and be like, wait, what time is it? Like that's when it hit me that I'm like, this is a thing that I can actually focus with is editing. And so that was the first time in my life where I lost track of time, which doesn't usually happen. So for me, I was like, okay, this is like kind of a good thing because I'm like, that means I'm really good at focusing at this. So that's honestly one of the main reasons I went into it. So
would you say, my daughter the other day asked me, she goes, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I could tell you straight face, there is no way in hell it would have been a salesperson, but here I am, 20 years later. Is this, if I were to ask you that at whatever age you discovered, would you say, yeah, I want to do this when I grow up?
No, when I was 15 was when so I was 15 in 2006. And that was the year that YouTube came out. YouTube came out in like 2005, 2006. So I was high school, 15. I was making videos at 15 on YouTube.
Wow.
So I was like, I just want to I want to be a YouTuber. I kept saying that for years, all throughout college. I'm like, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a YouTuber. And this is before it was even like a thing you could monetize. And now I'm a YouTuber in a sense. It's not my full-time thing, but I have 11,000 subscribers. So it's like I'm growing it. My goal is to hit 100,000. But I put out a video every week is my, that's my goal. Like to fit that in, I spend so now I record Mondays. So I do have a set day for filming. So I film in the morning Mondays, and then my goal is to have it set by Tuesday. And I can edit and film within about 3 hours. So for me, it's fast because I'm been doing this for 15 years. But for some people, that would take them 3 days to do. So I'm like I want to be consistent with my content so that I can feel like I'm doing something. But when I was younger, I wanted to be like a singer. Like I said, I wanted to be on stage. So now I'm a speaker. So I love to speak on stages, and I love to go on panels. I love to be on podcasts. I love just standing in front of a crowd. I have no stage fright, which is something that's interesting about me. I have never had stage fright my entire life. I've always loved being on stage. And so instead of doing singing, which I know is not like super realistic as a job, I was like, I can be a speaker. And that's what I'm hoping to do once my book is out. I can do more speaking.
So as far as YouTube channels, YouTube content, TikTok content, what is like what is the highest trending stuff, and where does neurodivergency fit into that? And is there a possibility it could climb the ranks?
100%. So during the pandemic specifically was when ADHD and neurodivergent content really exploded. I think more and more awareness became about it. And so TikTok specifically is where a lot of ADHD content lives, but it's expanded now to YouTube and Instagram. It's kind of started on TikTok. And so there are a ton of people, specifically creators, that have become ADHD content creators. Like that is now a thing that didn't exist 6 years ago. I'm serious. Like that was not a thing literally 6 years ago. Now I follow so many of those types of accounts because they're all very helpful. I've learned so much from them, but there's way more books now. There's way more books on autism in women. There's way more education in the last 5 years than I think in the last 20 combined about ADHD. So it's very much something where I also saw that trend of, hey, I should talk about this. I think you're probably seeing that too. There's a lot of people who struggle with this. It's not like a rare condition. It is very common. And so I think more and more people are just realizing, I have this. How can I help myself? Because one of the things I struggle with is people that don't want to change. They're stuck in their ways and they're not trying to improve themselves. That is my whole goal in life. My podcast is called The Optimization Toolbox because it's tools to optimize your life. And I've had that name now for about 2 years and I love it. I'm like, this is the name because it's exactly what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to help people optimize their life, and here are the tools to do that in so many ways.
That is amazing. Well, you talk about timing. This was, we had the clapping closers thing, and then that got taken away from me thanks to COVID, and we had the equipment and stuff. And I think I talked to you about this. I wanted to get back in the studio and do something. I didn't have a plan. I'm not on TikTok. I know you should judge me for that. Everyone else does.
No, it's once you get sucked in, you can't leave. So I'd say stay away.
Well, and that's the thing. You talked about addiction. I mean, or
mine is a
compulsion.
cell phone. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There was a Joe Rogan podcast where he was talking about if there was a drug that you took that forced you to stare at your hand for 7 hours a day, he's like, people would run from it, but yet that drug is our cell phone. So
yes, you do not want to see my time on my phone, my screen time. It is bad. It's bad.
Hey, at least we got to one of your weaknesses, right? Everyone's got something.
No, that is my vice for sure. Because I'm like, okay, if it's not alcohol, it's my phone addiction. And my friends make fun of me for it. Like, it's not like, and I know I have it. It's not like it's an unaware problem.
But it's right there. I mean, it's
my job too. I'm making social content. Like, it's my job. I've literally found a career where I have to be addicted to the thing that I probably shouldn't be.
No, you got to go to, liquor's everywhere. It's promoted on everything, right? That's clearly an agenda behind that. But like, you have to go to a store and purchase it, right? And pour it in a cup or whatever you do.
Yes.
With phones, it's like, they're right there. And it's just looking at me.
And I think our brains as ADHDers get more hooked because of the addiction, so the dopamine rush of it all. And for me, it's a connection tool. Like, I'm connecting with people, I'm texting, it's not just straight up consuming. It's both consuming and creating ideas for future videos. So a lot of it is research too. So for me, it's literally all the above. It's my whole life. And so I actually have 2 phones, which is funny. So like but it's just a backup one. Cause I'm like, what if something happens to my phone? I have a backup. If I'm ever filming 2 different things, I can have 2 phones. So it's a little much for some people, but.
So are you I'm going to say no, but are you the person to ask for somebody who's listening going, I struggle with phone addiction? Would we ask you to say, here's my plan of how to hone that a little bit?
I probably should go to like a treatment for it, but I'm also like in my head, I'm like, I constantly am like, well, it's not that big of a deal. So I have had to delete apps from my phone before. I recommend every like month doing like a social media free weekend. I need to do it more, but just delete all the apps off your phone for the weekend and just don't go on them for a weekend. Just try that. That's a good, like the detox options. I mean, I don't know if you've read that book about dopamine. I think there's like a book about dopamine that came out a couple years ago. I forget, like Dopamine Nation, I think is what it's called. But it's like there's so much about dopamine that I think is the heart of ADHD. It's a dopamine issue, and you've mentioned this too. And I think that unfortunately, our phones have become dopamine machines. Like they just know how to capture your attention. And I'm probably not the best person to talk about this because it's like it's not something I've tried to get rid of because it's something that it's just part of me. I don't know. And there are tools, there are apps, there are limits you can set. I always avoid them, even though I've set them for myself. That's a topic that I'm like, I don't know about that one. That's a tough one for me for sure.
Well, I mean, I struggle with it too. So, you
Yeah.
know, that's my parents visit and they're like, you're always on your phone. I'm like, well, I stock trade daily. And I also do podcasts and stuff, you know, or LinkedIn, or, you know, I have a minimal social footprint,
Yeah.
but the ones that I'm on, I take serious. And so I'm on it too, you know, and then, you know, I got kids. So like, you don't want them seeing daddy on his phone. So that's the one limitation that I've been able to set foot is, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm not saying I do it every day, but if I do sneak a peek at like a, you know, stock or a sports score, I'll always distract. I know that's not like I wouldn't write this one down if you're listening, guys, but like sometimes it's just so they don't see daddy. I just don't want to emulate the activities that I don't want them to do growing up. And I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
So the thing that I forgot to mention about specifically, I think it's more of the autistic thing. It's called all or nothing thinking. And so for me, I don't have any boundaries. It's either I use something or I don't at all. So it's like completely restricted. So that's why like the gluten-free, the alcohol, it has to be like completely restricted. Otherwise, like I don't know how to set boundaries in a sense.
Yeah.
So for me, with a phone, I can't really set boundaries because I have to use it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can't just be like, oh, I don't own a cell phone, which I know some people are like that. Or they're like, I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have whatever. For me, that's not really an option. So then I just don't know how to set boundaries for myself in that sense. Because I would go crazy in a sense.
Well, whenever I tell people I don't have a TikTok, I never had an Instagram. I
Really?
Never. And I just get a lot of heat because they're like, you could probably be more, I don't want to say famous, but they're like, you could be more recognizable, you know, in your space if you had those things. And I'm like, yes, but I know myself. And if I had those things, I would be addicted to them.
I have a solution.
Okay.
You use a scheduling app. So you don't actually look at the apps. It's literally just you schedule the same video to TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, but you don't have to look at those platforms. They just get sent and then you just let people discover them. So that way you're not looking at the apps, you're just scheduling them from a separate app called, like I use one called Metricool. So you can schedule it, you create a short or a vertical. This is what I do for clients. And then they don't ever have to look at that app. They're like, I don't ever use TikTok, but I want to be on there as a content creator. Just schedule it on there. And then, you can have somebody else check the stats and see if anyone's watching. Just an idea.
What's it called?
Metricool. It's free.
That's cool. Oh, I'm so glad this is being transcribed because I have all these nuggets, and I hope you guys listening are like, because not everyone's going to go and be a TikTok superstar, like Jenna here, but or start a YouTube channel. But it is an avenue, and for people that are more of the neurological. See, I grew up in a very physical family, so a lot of guys that can fix anything and do this stuff, and I don't know, I just wasn't interested or what happened, but now I'm trying to catch up because I want I got to chop wood out here and raise chickens and stuff. This is all stuff that I'm, thanks to YouTube, I'm learning how to do.
You learn a
but
lot.
like for some people that were like me in high school, maybe like you, where you're like, I'm not going to go swing a hammer. I'm not built to go be a lumberjack. What else can I do? And I have this crazy going on in my head. Have you found that have you found that that's what you've chosen as a path has really met your needs? And then could you explain to someone who's listening that maybe is of that neurological more skill set, how they could pursue that?
Are you asking if somebody wanted to make videos for themselves, or is it more for like me as an ADHDer, or what angle are you trying to? Sorry, I'm just like trying to understand.
No, that's
question.
a great clarification question. I guess what I'm thinking about is if I were listening to this when I was 15 years old and looking at my career path going, Wendy's, mechanic shop, railroad, or I mean, that was before. So 14 is when I discovered sales. I didn't know it was actually a career until I was later on, because I couldn't believe my uncle was getting paid. He got a free car. He got free lunch expense for all the pop I could drink. And he'd walk into these places and people were like, John. It was like homecoming because I used to ride with him. That's how I got into sales. I used to like mirror this guy. I was young and I didn't have a license. And he'd take me around Fargo Moorhead, which was a big city when I was growing up. And I was like, this can't be a job. So that was my aha moment of like, well, maybe this is what I'll pursue. You said you had that aha moment at 15.
Yeah.
And I guess what I should be asking in a better way is, how does someone with your skill set or your interests how do they take that aha, how do they discover the aha moment, and how do they capitalize on it?
I think I think video was what I was just born to do, and not everyone was born to do that. So figure out what you were born to do. And that's kind of the goal of life, is to figure out what your purpose is, what your passions are. I think just listening to yourself and just figure out, what am I gravitating towards? What am I naturally good at? I don't know if you've heard of the concept of ikigai. Have you heard of this? Mm-mm. So it's like I think it's like a Japanese, it's like you see it before. It's basically a reason for being, or a reason to live, encompassing what gives a person's life meaning, purpose, and joy. And so basically it's what's your profession, your vocation, your passion, and your mission. So it's mixing those four things together. And so for me, I loved video, but it wasn't until I started working with businesses and being a marketer that I was like, oh, I like helping businesses more than being a wedding videographer, which I didn't feel like it was my purpose, but it was my passion, was to make videos. So I'm mixing my passion and my purpose by helping small businesses with video, which is my passion. So I think for you, or for whoever's listening, find your passion and your purpose. So for you, your passion is probably people, and your purpose is helping people make money and growing their businesses with sales. So that's exactly for me, is like, I like helping businesses stay afloat and survive in marketing using video. So I think everyone needs to do this. And unfortunately, we're in a job market right now where you can't always do the job that you're meant to do, but keep working at it until you can get there. And so work your way up whatever ladder you need to, or find jobs that have sort of similar things to what you're eventually trying to reach, because you might not get it at 23, but you might get it at 33. So I think really just trying new things, and sometimes people just discover what they love by accident. For you, it was kind of an accident. For me, it was more of like, I've always loved videos, and then I found YouTube and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I need to do this. And not everyone is made out to be a YouTuber or make videos, because you have to have a lot of patience, in a sense of getting the shot and being creative, which some people aren't. They're very logical. My dad is a math guy. He's in finance. He's not a creative person, so he would never do the things I'm doing. But yet growing up, he would always film us as kids, home videos. But that was more from a nostalgic thing for him. He's like, I want to capture my children. For me, it was like, what's that video camera? Like, that was my thing. And then at some point, I took up the mantle of the family, and I started becoming the family photographer, videographer after I was old enough. So that was just my interest, And
editing, you said it, for someone, potentially on the spectrum, or someone a little more introverted, editing, that's a skill too. That's a career too as well, right? It
is. And like, I do filming and editing, but I like editing better. I just did a post about this. I was like, editing, somebody told me a couple months ago, they're like, why don't you just outsource the editing? Because you could. I'm like, no, that's the part I love. That's the part that I am passionate about, because I'm building a story from the footage that I got. And so for me, I absolutely love editing, and it can be kind of annoying at times because it takes up so much space on your computer, and it's kind of time. It does take some time, but then the final product, you're like, I made this. This is a final peace. It's like writing a book or building a house. It's like, this is something I made, there's a physical thing.
That's such a cool thing. Like I'm envious of people. I mean, we build businesses and sell them, or we help people build profit and sell or get acquired or whatever. But that's it. Like, so that's my only thing I could relate to, like creating a video or whatever. But there is something to be said about something with your hands. Like you've made something and someone wants to give you money for it. And that's a special place.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do with my book eventually. Once I eventually write it, which it's been on my list for like 6 years to write, and I'm like, I finally want to do it this summer. I just want to write my book.
Well, now you got an audience to hold you accountable.
Hopefully.
Hey, we are over. I just lost track of time, so I have 3. We're gonna do a rapid fire little thing at the end here, and then I want to give you a chance to tell people where to find you, and then so on and so forth. So, first question. There's going to be 3. As an ADHDer with autistic flavors, we'll say, what is your biggest pet peeve?
About ADHD or just in the world?
About just because.
Ooh, that's a good question. My biggest pet peeve is people that don't try to improve themselves. I'm going to be honest. Like, I hate when people are just like, they just survive and they just aren't trying to better themselves or others. That's probably my biggest pet peeve in general. Like, I just don't see what life is worth living if you're not trying to get better at it. So I know it's like a really big one, but it's like, I hate seeing someone sitting on a couch and not trying to, like, we only have one life. And try to make it as best as it can be. That's kind of that's maybe my personal passion, but.
And those listening, this has come from somebody who wakes up every day, if we want to call this a deficiency, with a deficiency and still has that attitude. I love it.
Yeah.
Question number 2, what is the most recent, like, ADHD moment you had where you're like, hand slap to head type of thing. You're like, oop.
I do think it was that HOA thing. That was a tough one because I like literally hate opening my mail because I'm like, oh, that means that I have to like pay money. Like I just, I'm very avoidant, and that's like a part of my personality. And so seeing that I literally had to up my price of my HOA and then I had to literally send a check. I had to call my dad being like, I effed up. Like, I was just very much like, and I knew it was me. Like, it was my fault. And so, yeah, that was definitely one recently that I just was like, that's very an ADHD thing of me, for sure.
All right, final one. What are parting words of wisdom, something in a soundbite that you would like to share to our listeners? Some who have ADHD, some who do not. Some who are raising someone who does, someone who's working or managing someone alongside. So it's a swath. It doesn't need to be just focused on people like us. But what are those parting words?
I think trying to build a life that is manageable for you. It might not be perfect, but I really think creating small changes that benefit you, I'll give a quick example. I always used to lose my keys around my house. I'd forget to hang them up. They'd be somewhere. I bought an air tag. So now whenever I'm running late, where are my keys? I just make the little noise and I can go run and find it. I have the same thing for my car. I have an air tag in my car. So if I forget where I parked, I can literally look on a map and know where I parked. So for me, having those little devices or hacks have made my life better. So think about the things that you struggle with the most. Obviously, at this point in time, AI is a huge help for some people, especially neurodivergent people. If there's an AI tool, if there's a hack that you can create for yourself that makes your life better, try it and see if it works for you.
Love it. Jenna Redfield, thank you so much for gracing us with your time and your brilliance. There's so many takeaways. I'll be really listening to this one a few times. One, because I have to. Number 2, because there's things that I didn't get a chance to jot down. Where should people go to learn more from you, learn more about you, support you, and so on? I
would say my Substack is the main one. It's so you can sign up with your email, and then you get, whenever I post on Substack, you'll get an email. So that includes my podcast, my YouTube. I usually embed those into my Substack. My YouTube channel is linked on there. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Instagram. TikTok is more for fun. But yeah, those are probably the main platforms for me. So.
And we would just Google your name?
Yeah, I'm the only Jenna Redfield in the world. So if you look me up, you're going to find me. So, yeah.
All right. That makes it easy, especially for us lazy ADHDers, or so they say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. This has been really enjoyable. Guys, please go support Jenna, learn from her. You're going to learn a lot more from her than you are me. And we just want to keep this community going. So as long as you guys keep listening, we're going to keep putting content out there and share it with your friends. Thank you guys again for listening. Thank you, Jenna. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks.